Encyclopedia.zone. My name is Dr. Don Jelly. I am a freelance writer and editor and the editor-in-chief of Encyclopedia.zone, the internet's premier home for literary shitposting. Our new issue is coming out this week. It is the Quarantine Fun Zone. All the best shitposts on artwork and comics about the quarantine that we are all experiencing and about anything other than the quarantine. So join us later on the site for that. I'll let you know on video when it goes up. This is now week three and a half of the stay home, work safe provisions here in Austin, Texas. And I would assume that most of my viewers around the world are experiencing something similar. Staying in the house, spending a lot of time by myself and with my roommate. And I'm going to pretty much only the grocery store. And I'm lining up with the other patrons at that beautiful institution of HEB with a 6-foot remove. And I'm wearing this excellent mask that a friend of mine sewed for me, and beautiful work it is. So, I've seen the posts, people talking about this is all a big conspiracy. This is all overstated. They're trying to lock down our ability to move and our ability to assemble, and they're trying to expand their ability to surveil us. They, in this case, being the conglomeration of multinational corporations and the federal government, who is the usual they in the background of what is so casually dismissed in our political conversations as conspiracy theories. Now, I don't agree with the terminology of conspiracy theory. I think that the quote-unquote conspiracy theory is a label that you apply to any kind of social analysis which does not fit the status quo. I don't like talking about that. However, and unquestionably, this is being used to expand the rights of the state to surveil us. There are a lot of opportunistic pieces of legislation that are being pushed through during this time of quarantine. However, I don't think that the COVID-19 plague is a fabrication, and I don't think it's an exaggeration. I think that this is a pandemic along the lines of pandemics that we've seen before we had, global media and infrastructure to sort of deal with them this way. I think that the massive expense of this shutdown sort of goes against any theory that this is some sort of just like 100% perfidious fabrication, because this is costing them, quote unquote, quite a bit of money, and they don't like to lose money, as we all know. The thing about COVID-19, conspiracy theories, for lack of a better word, the main one I see is that COVID is fabricated, and that the sicknesses are all being caused by 5G waves. The idea is, look, the main thing that you get out of most modern, post-industrial religions is control. Or most specifically, the illusion of control. I would say that this is actually at the center of our politics, is you have to sell people the illusion that they have some control over the system that they're living in, the governmental system. The 5G waves thing, the idea that this isn't just a virus, like the influenza epidemic at the beginning of the 20th century, like many epidemics that have happened in the last couple of years with less lethal viruses like SARS and swine flu that were perhaps less transmittable. The idea that this is actually somehow derived from technology means that ultimately it is under our control. It takes a chaotic situation and says, well, if so-and-so were to just flip a switch somewhere, we'd all be okay. And I am suspicious of any theory of the world that offers its adherents an undue level of control over the reality that they are living in. Because the truth is that we live in a reality which is mostly out of our control. You can affect small things about your own life, how you spend your time, what you eat, blah, blah, blah. You have a great deal of personal autonomy, but there are a majority of things that can determine the conditions of your life upon which you can exercise no meaningful control. And so while I agree that there's a lot of opportunistic legislation coming out of this thing, it does not make me disbelieve in the pandemic writ large. And having seen the numbers that are coming out of Italy, the numbers coming out of China, and you can put as many asterisks on these things as you want. Like, we're seeing postings from healthcare workers, people in hospitals, people that are personally connected with somebody who has the disease. And, these are social media postings. These aren't, being fabricated by any particular large group. This isn't something that you could just gin up in mass media. The way that mass media narrative control works, essentially, is it's not about fabricating events. It's about selectively reporting on events. If this whole thing was just completely ginned up, completely false, or like totally over exaggerated, then there would be a lot of people who would be in a position to independently verify that exaggeration. People outside of the media complexes, people whose jobs don't depend on sort of state funding or, being amenable to the corporate surveillance state. It just does not wash with me that this is all some kind of big fabrication, as much as it's being taken advantage of by many of the powers that be. So I'm wearing my mask. I'm staying inside. I'm trying to do my best to, quote unquote, flatten the curve. And like most of you, I watched the fucking Tiger King. So a buddy of mine who's a wrestler here in town sent me the link, told me that he really enjoyed the fucking Tiger King on Netflix, and I have another buddy's Netflix login, so I was able to watch the whole show, because what the hell else am I doing other than putting the next issue of Encyclopedia Zone together? And the thing that I found really interesting about Tiger King is it's this massive success. Everybody's talking about it. It's the most watched TV show of this disaster, where everybody is basically forced to stay inside and watch TV. And the thing that really struck me about it is it's kind of a new form of television, which is actually an old form of online discourse. I would argue that Joe Exotic is the first massive blockbuster successful television Lolcow. Now, Lolcow is kind of a difficult term. Basically, it's a person on the internet who people get a lot of fun out of investigating and surveilling and trolling. It's a person who lives in a very odd and idiosyncratic bubble of reality, and the fun of observing the Lolcow comes from seeing just how divergent that bubble of reality is with the rest of the world surrounding them, and also with puncturing that bubble strategically for humorous effect. The term Lolcow means that this is somebody who can be continuously milked for lols. This is someone who is funny to observe, who is constantly producing new dramas, new fucking crazy sagas. Like, if you ever go on the Christian Weston Chandler wiki, and I'm not defending what happened to Chris Chan. Chris Chan is basically like a severely autistic young woman at this point, who does these comics about a character named Sonichu, which is a combination of Sonic and Pikachu. In the comics, like, the administrator of his community or her community college is cast as this really ridiculous villain. Like, basically all of Chris Chan's grievances against the world end up in these Sonichu comics. It's a real insight and a real outsider art experience to see how this person is experiencing reality. And they have been continuously trolled for years and years and years to great humorous effect by Kiwi Farms and other similar websites. So I'm not defending what happened to Chris Chan, by the way. Like, I think it's really mean, the stuff that's happened to Chris over the years. Past the Liquid Chris saga, I'm out, man. I also, would really like to publish Chris Chan comics in the future. I actually legitimately like Sonichu. I think it's pretty fucking funny. So the Lolcow is a person who is the victim of media attention, and usually to an extent they court it. Like Chris Chan, it sort of becomes your identity when you allow yourself to become a Lolcow. You have at a baseline desire, these people want to be publicized, and they're not happy with the way that they're being publicized, but they're addicted to the publicity itself, which is what makes it possible to continuously milk them for lols. Now, you might be saying that this sounds an awful lot like reality television, and the Tiger King, which is this like multi-part documentary series about large animal trainers that Netflix did. I think it's 6 episodes, and I think they're producing a 7th now because it's actually been so successful. That's the word on the street. Tiger King does have elements of reality television in it, and I one of the main interviews that they have is with this fellow who was a reality show producer that went in and interacted with Joe Exotic, the owner of the GW Zoo out in Oklahoma, who is the main character of the Tiger King series, the central Lolcow of the series. There's an element of reality television in this thing, but the reality television is sort of this like halfway step between 20th century television and 21st century online drama, because lolcows are essentially like celebrities of online drama. They're, when you talk about them producing these sagas and these story arcs, like they basically do crazy shit, or crazy shit is done to them which provokes a funny reaction, and it's summarized in videos, forum posts, stuff like you see from Mr. Medicare, who was, doing this very profitably during Gamergate about Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian, et cetera, et cetera. So what makes a lolcow different from the star of a reality television show? Like I said, reality TV is sort of this interstitial moment. Why did reality TV start taking off at the end of the 1990s? Well, it's cheaper to produce. You don't have to pay actors, casts are interchangeable. And it's incredibly dramatic, melodramatic. It takes advantage of people's basic desire to be on television, to be famous, and it exploits them because, we have a different relationship with reality television characters than we do with like the cast of a TV show. The cast of a TV show, they're attractive people. You're happy to have them in your house. At least that's the theory. And, they're supposed to be this sort of a presence that you can look up to, an admirable presence. Even the Always Sunny in Philadelphia people, they're playing these very unadmirable characters. Very attractive people, very charismatic people, very funny people. Like, when you invite Glenn Howerton and Danny DeVito into your house by watching that show, you are inviting a bunch of attractive, charismatic, funny people into your house to entertain you. Reality television, though, looks down on its subjects. But reality television also, because it uses the language of television, has to ennoble those subjects. And there's sort of this tongue-in-cheek level of ennobling that it gives them. Like, the think of the way that they do the kicking people off the island ceremony in Survivor. Like, obviously that's total bullshit. People watch Survivor to essentially laugh at these fucking crazy jackasses. But when it's time to actually do the game show part of it, it's got this like weird forced solemnity, which carries over into a bunch of the sort of game show style reality things, because ultimately the show has to take itself seriously and it has to pretend that there is some ethos in being a survivor. And so, they give it this phony pomp and circumstance, and they give the subjects of the reality show a basic kind of, perhaps joking respect, but a basic kind of respect. So you think about somebody like Honey Boo Boo or the fucking the pageant kids that they would do those. Like, I haven't seen most of these shows, so like you're gonna have to bear with me if I make some basic factual mistakes about them. But I do feel like I have kind of a rough idea of the appeal of fucking reality television. And I watched the one with I watched the kitchen one. I watched the one with Gordon Ramsay where he goes in and yells at people. So I'm going to just extrapolate from that to kind of talk about the field as a whole. You look at like Honey Boo Boo or the Duck Dynasty people, where it's like you're essentially laughing at these crazy weirdos. The show still is framed in a way where the crazy weirdos reality predominates. They are the cast of a television show, and the way that they see the world is ennobled. And you could see that in Tiger King, because Joe Exotic, the owner of the GW Zoo, who's the central locale of the show, he had a reality TV show that was being produced about him, and they play some clips from that reality television show, and it kind of gives you a glimpse of what Tiger King would be if it was made in this sort of more 2010s interstitial, more television format, because Tiger King, of course, is a multi-part streaming documentary which is playing on Netflix. So it's an online native program. And you see that the main shot that they keep repeating of the reality TV version of Tiger King is Joe Exotic in a fucking throne with the camera whipping around him, and he's taking a cape off of his shoulders. And it's like, yeah, there's a little tongue in cheek to it, but it is still celebrating him as a legitimate king, which the Netflix documentary does not do. So this whole thing, like, I'm watching the Tiger King documentary, and it's really, well, documentary, quote unquote, it's really well done for what it is. But what it is essentially a big budget, comparatively, television show about online drama, about a series of people: Joe Exotic, Doc Antle, Carol Baskin, all these people who own big cat zoos, who live in these weird little bubbles of reality where they are the ultimate lord and master of their world. And all these people have some sort of desire for publicity. Carol Baskin at Big Cat Rescue in Florida has a very active social media account. I think they all have very active social media accounts at this point. In the documentary, they say that her YouTube account has more than 2.2 million views, which is a sore spot for Joe Exotic, who has a much less popular internet web video presence. And he was doing like streaming talk shows, stuff like that. And these people all sort of live in their private reality bubbles. And what the documentary does is it takes their words about themselves and their words about each other, contrasts them with the public record, which, because ultimately this all ends up in court because Joe Exotic attempts to have Carol Baskin killed, or maybe he was forced into it or whatever, because it's also got that element of that Making a Murderer, investigative true crime documentary thing, which has been all the rage for the last few years. But I'm less interested in that thread of it than I am in the online drama thread. It takes these people's own words and their own view of themselves and contrasts it with elements that are drawn from the public record and with what they have to say about each other to essentially create a story where they are all portrayed as assholes and fools. They are not ennobled in the way that they would have been ennobled by a reality television show that sort of uses that reality format to turn them into the cast of a TV show. They are not the cast of a TV show. These big cat owners and these owners of private zoos and stuff like that are portrayed in this show as lolcows. They're crazy assholes who are mixed up in illegal shit, and the show explicates on all of the bizarre collisions between these people and the bizarre details of their personal lives, their polygamous relationships, their various, adjacencies to murder. And it makes them into the subject of perversely entertaining dark fun. It trolls the shit out of all these people. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to troll them. They seem like real fucking assholes. But while I was watching it, I realized that this is a series of lolcows, and it's also the subject matter for the most popular fucking TV show going right now. The online culture, quote unquote, is sort of ceasing to be online culture. Like, there's been this slow degradation of the old media forms, and this is why I say that reality TV is sort of this interstitial thing, because reality TV, one of the main reasons that it became so populous and so popular is because it was cheap to produce, and the margins were going down for television entertainment as the viewership shrunk, next to competition from the internet. As time has gone on, online culture has just become culture to the point where now people who would never hang out on kiwi farms, who have no idea who Chris Chan is, are essentially engaging in the behavior of a follower of lolcow drama. Joe Exotic Tiger King is a lolcow for the common man, a lolcow for the normies. And, it was only a matter of time. As I was watching this thing, I realized, I've been doing shit like this. I've been laughing at fucking online drama, following online drama. I'm not, a crazy obsessive about it or anything, but, I post online. And one of the most fun and funny things you can do online, if you're just, bored for hours and hours, is dive down the rabbit hole of one particular drama or another. I'm involved in some online drama, people online, people who build a life for themselves online, they can create these little private fiefdoms, these little reality bubbles. And, it's very interesting to look at the contours of those reality bubbles and to laugh at the people inside them, especially when they're at crazy variance with the world outside. I remember back on Something Awful in the early 2000s, there was a guy named King Riol, and King Riol made Doom maps. And he was very upset at Rich Kyanka, the owner of Something Awful, because he was making fun of his Doom maps. Like, this was one of Rich's things, like low tax. This is one of the things that he sort of got started doing back in the day, was he would do bad reviews of shitty levels for Quake 2 and Doom and Unreal and all that stuff. And so he wrote a couple of reviews where he said that King Riol's Doom maps really sucked. And King Riol had this little page to himself with all these graphics that he ginned up, where he just talked about how he was the king shit, he was the best guy in the fucking world, he made the best Doom maps in the fucking world. And when those maps got reviewed poorly, he started writing in to Lowtax, posting on the forum saying, like, You've messed with God, Richard. Like, I'm coming for you, man. You better wake and sleep with one eye open, dude, because I'm coming with a fucking gun. Anyway, that's enough mask time. But he basically just completely overreacted to having his Doom levels reviewed poorly. And every once in a while, Lowtax would send him another email and start it up, or King Riol would send another email and start it up. And man, in 2001, I was a kid. I was like freshman in high school, or I was in 8th grade. And nothing was more fun on a fucking Wednesday night when there's nothing good on the tube than seeing King Riol, like, flap his megalomaniac wings all over the fucking forum for, a couple hours, and it's fun and it's funny, and it felt like something that only a very small subsect of people was enjoying. But you take 20 years and the progress of technology, and suddenly that piece of very insider online culture is the essential behavior that's powering a huge mass media phenomenon like the Tiger King. When people tune into the Tiger King, they are tuning in to see the fucking drama that he generates, episode by episode, to see the drama that's generated by the people around him, to see him get in these crazy screaming fights, and it's not reality TV show kind of fights where he's like firing people. It does not ennoble him at all. I know that some people have come out of it saying, like, oh, he was framed and shit like that, but, like, the Tiger King show essentially says this guy was living this incredibly wrong-headed lifestyle. He just had this idea of himself that was completely untrue. He thought that he was in love with these people that he was married to. He's in several gay polygamous relationships, and then as the thing goes on, it's like, no, they weren't really in love with them. There was no love involved. This guy was exploiting these incredibly vulnerable people and, like, buying them trucks in exchange for sexual favors. And like one of them actually kills himself. I mean, you want to talk about fucking online drama. The public suicide is the ultimate online drama fucking move. I'm not saying that that's the reason that this poor fellow, did this. I'm just saying that, like, all of us gawking at it, like, we are engaged in a deeply online behavior at that point. And it's no longer an online behavior. It's now mass culture. Online culture has become culture. And, it's very interesting that it's happening now, too, because this social distancing thing, this quarantine, has forced everybody online. This is where we're getting our society now. And now, when everybody is forced to be online culture de facto just becomes culture. And so it doesn't surprise me to see people enjoying this kind of entertainment on a massive scale. It feels a little strange, but, there you are. Another anecdote from early Something Awful that I think is relevant here is I remember on FIAD around the turn of the last century, there were a number of threads about the Yorba Linda Water District, which is the Yorba Linda, the water district governing Yorba Linda, California, birthplace of Richard Nixon and home to the Richard Nixon Museum. The leader of the Yorba Linda Water District at that point was Arthur C. Korn. His lieutenant was Michael J. Beveridge. And the reason I think originally that these people started getting posted about on Fuck You and Die, which was sort of the shitpost board on Something Awful, was that they had uploaded these like massive photos of themselves to the Yorba Linda Water District website because they didn't know that they had to shrink them down to make it possible to actually view the photo on internet connections at the time. So it was funny that there were these just massive, super high-res images of Michael J. Beveridge and Arthur C. Korn, and I think that's the basis of the joke, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, people started following the Yorba Linda Water District, coming up with drama about the Yorba Linda Water District. A few fellas actually drove out to Yorba Linda and took pictures of themselves at the Water District. One of them actually got to meet Michael J. Beveridge. People wrote erotic fiction about the Yorba Linda Water District. And the reason I bring this up is because that was one of the only, that was the moment when I realized, like, hey, we've got this mass media organ. At the time, of course, it was only being enjoyed by maybe tens of thousands of people at a time at the absolute maximum. And now it's, the ceiling is much higher. We've got this mass media organ that we are capable of manipulating, which means that celebrity is whatever we want it to be. A celebrity is anybody that online posters are interested in. Now, when you take that power to sort of anoint people, to create celebrity, and you combine it with people that have a desire for celebrity, and people who may not have, perhaps the skills traditionally associated with great popularity, and it's like fucking dry wood and fire. They come together, and there are these great fucking conflagrations where the desire for publicity and the unwanted publicity feed into one another, and they create these great cataclysmic explosions of human life, of which the Tiger King documentary is only one example. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that this is good or bad. I mean, the whole Lolcow thing, you can say that it's very cruel, and there's a cruelty to it. The idea of publicizing people in a way that they don't consent to and that they don't agree with, making people infamous, is one of the things that the internet excels at. Television also excels at producing infamy, but the subjects of televised infamy, I think, are still, the beneficiaries of the basic ennobling properties of the television medium, where the idea is that these are people that are being invited into your home. And, you can invite a villain into your home. You can invite somebody, invite somebody in that you have a low opinion of. But subjects of television, including subjects of reality television, sorry, my cat is talking. But subjects of television, including subjects of reality television, are still essentially kind of caught up in that spectacular broadcast, the idea that the television is this larger-than-life world. And certainly, there's a lot of larger-than-life aspects to the Tiger King. I mean, the guy breeds, massive 300-pound tigers. That's very interesting. That's very larger than life. There's an operatic quality to all of this. But at the same time, I don't think that if you come away from Tiger King, you watch the whole thing, I don't think you're going to come away with an idea of Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin and Doc Antle that they would be comfortable with you receiving. I think that what this show does is it breaks down their perceptions of themselves. All three of them are broken down over the course of the show. They're showed up as hypocrites and self-involved monsters and ultimately criminals. And the whole thing is about taking their little reality bubbles that they've cultivated around themselves, the world of big cats that they have turned into this larger-than-life opera, and about deflating it and showing it as something base and cruel. And I think it is something base and cruel. I'm not saying that the show is wrong to do that. I'm just saying that it is engaged in this extremely online social project. And I've got to go feed this cat now. So I'm not saying it's better or worse that online culture and culture have collided with one another and become one and the same. I'm just saying that it is. So if you think that there is a basic propensity towards cruelty in this sort of troll-based Lolcow online celebrity ecosystem, then it is contingent upon you to change it. And honestly, I don't really see anybody with a genuine appetite for that. On either end of the social spectrum, we all like a little bit of online drama. We all like a little bit of titillation, and we all like to laugh at people who are publicity hungry, crummy, and essentially deluded. We all like to laugh at King Riol. Actually, I think nobody is laughing at King Riol these days. Maybe my cat is. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching Encyclopedia.zone. And we will have another update up this week. And also, I'm going to have to talk about the voting that happened in Wisconsin today. I didn't want to do it tonight because I find it too depressing that the Democratic Party and the government of the United States would essentially willfully kill people to perpetuate the death cult of its political religion. But, that's a Lolcow for another day. Anyway, Don out. Everybody stay safe out there.